Hey everyone, Tactics here, covering the second last boss of Mythic Sepulcher, Rygelon, and in this video I'll be going through everything you need to do to prepare your raid for this boss. That includes things like the MRT note, things like important weak auras, certain diagrams you can use making raid plan IO to make it very clear for your raid group where people need to be and when and how each phase is going to look, and setting up things like healing seeds, which are especially important on this fight. This fight is pretty much in its current state just a healing check. There's not too complicated mechanics wise. The DPS check really isn't that tight. It's pretty much just, can you keep everyone alive while also doing those heroic mechanics perfectly? It's definitely going to take some time for you guys to get this boss down. It is still a tough one for sure, but hopefully this preparation helps you cut down your pull count a decent amount. So to start off here, I am going to look at this note here and what we've placed. So there are a couple of important knockbacks and slows, specifically in the first wave of quasars. Now we did find that you only needed to use these kind of CCs on the first set. After the nerfs that increase the duration of quasar puddles, it's much less of a big deal in the later sets, but really you want 2 knocks on the first set to kind of group up the first 4 you're killing, and then 2 slows on the first set to make the 2 that you're not killing stay back a little bit deeper. And basically these here are just the symbols they're going to be doing in each respective phase, and I can pull up the diagram here to kind of show you guys our general positioning, and this is also one of the main diagrams for which soak people are taking moving down into the intermission, because there are exactly 20. So you definitely want to hard assign these. And I'll explain that exactly in a second. But basically, in terms of boss positioning here, we always take the boss like around here to start. Then it's going to be over here between blue and star. In the second phase upstairs, and then finally over here between circle and moon for the third upstairs phase, and then the last one is back to this positioning, but obviously this area is all taken up, so it's over just between these two right here. And so basically, if we're looking at the knockbacks in the phase 1, we need knockback on this one and this one, these quasars, just insta, so that it groups up these 4 quasars here together for the first set of soaks. And we also have slows assigned to this quasar and this quasar, so that they come in later on, or a little later anyways, and then we kill them when they get closer, and people can take those soaks as well. Similarly, when we rotate around the room, that's why there's different markers, so we get knocks on moon and diamond for the second set of for the first set of quasars in the second phase, slows on circle, triangle, etc., etc. That's basically what these markers here are denoting. It's like where that knock is, where that knock is, where that slow is, where that slow is. Nox, anything really works. Typhoon is fine. It's not quite as aggressive as you wanted. You definitely would probably prefer having like an Ellie Shaman knock or a Priest knock on these things, just because it is a much more forceful knock and it gets them a little bit closer, and that's fine. And like I mentioned though, you don't need a second knock here. Previous strategies were knocking backwards in the second set. It's really not necessary anymore. Given the nerfs to the quasar time, they'll stay down like 4 seconds longer or something like that than they would before. Maybe it was 6 seconds longer. I can't quite remember what the original time was, but basically that secondary knock is not really required anymore. So just having 1 knock on the first set on each of those 2 quasars is all you really need. The next thing is the cosmic core soaks, and again, we do have it in the note here, and we do also have a weak aura to go along with that. So basically, this weak aura here, you want to make sure all 9 people that are assigned to soak these has this weak aura. And in terms of who you're actually assigning, the recommendation is tanks and healers. Get as many as you can, and then you're gonna have a couple spares. So we have a couple warlocks in here as well, picking up soaks, because of course warlocks very, very tanky. They are one of the better DPS specs to be taking a soak. Boomkins are also pretty tanky and can do that. Mages, rogues, also decent options. Rogues are pretty good for the melee one because Cloak of Shadows is very strong, right? They can cloak and take not too much damage. Mages would have to ice block to do the similar thing, but of course that means they're not DPSing when they're doing that, so just mages are an option, but warlocks, boomkins, rogues probably better but in front of a mage if you want to do that. Now, in terms of where these soaks are, basically the soaks are a bit random. There's always going to be one close to the boss, one medium distance from the boss, and then one far. And they will always just pick on the closest player. So you don't need to be directly under this circle if you're just the closest player. So especially important for these far ones. If everyone else is kind of in the middle or close middle to of the room, you just need to be the furthest back and you'll get that soak when it spawns, right? Just, again, watch the sides it spawns at. Could spawn back left, could spawn back right, right? It varies, and you're going to see on the poll that I walk you guys through our very first kill, it varies quite a bit. And sometimes even the close one, like, isn't in melee of the boss. Like, sometimes the close one is in kind of like the middle of the room. It's a bit weird. So just be aware of that. That weak aura will kind of yell at you when you need to soak, like, which set in each round. If you hit 7 stacks of a soak and each soak gives 3 stacks, you instantly die. And that does actually happen on our kill poll, so I'll point that out. But basically, you can pretty safely have a tank with a major defensive up take 6 stacks, but the problem is then if you miss a soak, a 7 stack goes on that tank for whatever reason, they're instantly dead. So just be aware of that. But otherwise, just, you know, pop a personal, soak your 3 stacks. Make sure the rest of the raid is moving away from these orbs so that they aren't getting cleaved and getting stacks themselves, because that's just additional raid damage you want to avoid. So that's the big thing there. We have soaks, we have knocks, and we have slows here from the warlocks. Now, the other major thing for this boss fight is healing CDs. Healing CDs, and this is just a Viserio's spreadsheet here. I'll link it down below if you guys want it for yourself. Very, very important to set them up for this fight. If you just kind of are used to YOLOing healing CDs, you're going to be in for a very, very rough time. Resto Druid's very, very good in this fight because Convoke gives you a ton of coverage. Holy Priest, very good, especially if you have a couple. Having a couple Holy Priests lets you do this staggered hymn and salve healing. Like, look how many hymns and salves we get off here. It's very good. But basically, you just want to layer your healing CDs. This Aura Mastery, for example, is just like we realize like the first Aura Mastery we'd want is pretty late in this fight, right during the second intermission. So if you Aura Mastery pretty early on, you'll have it for when we need it, that kind of thing. And it is trying to get like these shorter CDs used as much as possible, right? Convoke is used pretty much every minute with like maybe 15 seconds of delay tops. Similar with Wings, right? You're pretty much just hitting it on CD, and then you have these smaller or these longer CD cooldowns kind of filling in, like Healing Tide is kind of filling in the gaps. Tranquility is kind of filling in the gaps. Symbol of Hope also very strong on this fight. With a couple symbols positioned in the right spots, you can actually make sure that everyone has their 3-minute defensive that's affected by symbols up every single time you go down. And of course, if their CD is not a 3-minute CD, it'll also be up. So with the symbols, if you have 2 Holy Priests, if you symbols in these spots, and then you have one right before and then right after again, basically you have 3-minute CDs available whenever you need them to be available. So very, very strong. If you have a couple symbols at your disposal. But again, like at this point, you can do this with any healing comp. As long as you have the planning here and you're able to kind of stagger these healing CDs. This was a 5 heal, by the way. We have the 6 healer in here. But no, this wasn't actually in. It was just these 5 here. And it's all about just not overlapping too much. Now, in terms of other weak auras we use, this is just the Dark Eclipse reminder. This plays a sound when you have the Dark Eclipse debuff, so DPS players, and, you know, yells at you to soak. This is basically just a timer. It shows the duration of the Dark Eclipse emotes, debuffs, so you can track them. And a big thing is for the Dark Eclipse, always 2 melee and 2 ranged get picked for every set of 4 debuffs. And so we kind of had them assigned to soaking specific sets of Quasars just to make life a little bit easier. Yeah, the bulk of preparation for this boss is going to be these healing CDs for sure, 100%. And again, like you can take a look at ours if you want, but it's just about staggering those healing CDs and making sure you have coverage everywhere. Now let's walk you guys through our actual kill. Let's do that to one time speed. All right, so again, pulling here between green and purple right off the bat here. We have the 4 debuffs going out. And again, like I said, this is 2 melee and 2 ranged. And so the way this works is that we have a knock setup on, in this case, orange, and a knock setup on blue. These 2 are the ranged ones. And so the ranged DPS assigned to each side. Actually, that reminds me. The ranged DPS assigned to each side. I did not show you that weak aura. Let me get that weak aura for you. Okay, here is the weak aura that I'm talking about, and I'll show this to you in game as well. So basically, this will assign you left or right, depending on which soak you are, when you get the Quasar debuff. So that makes it so that people know exactly which Quasar they're going to be going to. And here it is. I'll link that again down in the description below. And this does have a little bit of custom code, actually. In actions here, if you have DPS assigned to these knocks in particular, you can always have them be assigned a left or right soak. Again, this is much less important now after the lack of really needing knocks post nerf, but it is there if you want that option. In the actions tab, you just insert the names here and there for who's staying left and right. And it is important to note though, for this weak aura purpose, let me show you. So you look from the inside facing out. So it would be flipped for my area. So this would be the left and this would be the right. So you're aware. And like I said, so melee are assigned to soak these ones. So a melee will get left and a melee will get right. So one of Yaga and Mox getting left, one's getting right. And so they know, hey, if I'm right and I'm a melee DPS, I'm getting this one. If I'm left, I'm a melee DPS, I'm getting this one here. Similarly, the range knows they're getting orange. The range know if they're left, the other range knows they're getting blue if they're on the right. So that's how this weak aura works. It assigns a left and a right to the ranged and a left and a right to the melee. And you already kind of have those melee Quasars assigned, the ranged Quasars assigned. Sorry, I almost forgot that one. All right, moving forward here. So you're going to see now Quasars are coming out. And this is the priority, always kill these Quasars. This is the tightest one, always the first set, killing these 4 because all 4 debuffs are out. And you just don't have a ton of time there, right? Because the debuffs are already rolling, so make sure these get hard focused. The first set of every phase is always the tightest one. So everyone has one. You see the range like went to the Quasar they're supposed to get. These are the slowed Quasars. They're just coming in and we kill them as they come in. This is perfectly fine now. You don't really need to delay too long because they last 12 seconds. These are melee soaks. So we say melee, your soaks are down. Whenever you get your debuffs, melee get their debuffs. They can insta-soak. And they just go, they grab their soaks, and now we're waiting. And the next spawn comes out. And so these 2 here are the new range soaks. You can already see the range DPS assigned to right is right beside this one. The other range DPS is down here, right beside theirs. And so that we kill these ASAP, 3 seconds, going close, and they insta-soak. And that's always how this is going to work. So these Quasar timings are the same for every upstairs phase. You're just doing it in a different part of the room with a little bit less space. You can always do this. Then these last Quasars are just coming in, and we just kind of kill them as they come in. Again, the nerfs to make these last 12 seconds on the ground make this much more lenient. And then people can just soak their puddles as they get to them. And that one where it's not super clear where the puddles were, like as long as you get one on your half of the room, it's people can kind of say, oh, there's the puddle. Let's go. Let's take that. Now, big change, of course, is the health of this pylon over here. Only people that take those Quasar soaks can kill them. Your goal for this pylon health will be like the first team, just kind of blast it a bit. Do whatever you can. Get it down. Stop at 10% for sure. So second group, when you guys go in, if it's at 10% already, you just don't hit it. Period. Range DPS can hit the boss. Melee DPS kind of just have to sit there. Maybe, heroic throw the boss, whatever. But if that thing is at 10% HP, you stop touching it. The last group, so that third group that just happened in this right here, this set right here, their job is to kill the pylon. And that way, the pylon always dies at the right time. You always have circles to go down into the intermission phase. Now, let's back up and look at Cosmic Core Soaks in this first phase. And hopefully I can show you a little bit of randomness here. So this is the first set again. Cosmic Core starts spawning in a few seconds here. And you're going to see these white orbs float from the ceiling. There's going to be 3. They come in spawns of 3, and each phase has 3 sets back to back to back. So that's the first set. Melee move away from it. Tank soaks it. We've got this one soaking. And again, remember, he didn't even need to be right under it. He was kind of chilling right here. And there's one all the way back here you can see in the top corner. That's the far one. The next melee one, again, melee DPS, move away from it. There's mid and back is much further. You can't even see it from my angle. And then the last one comes in, and this is a bit of a weird one, right? So this is another melee one, but that's the mid one. Like, you see how weird that is spawn-wise? And this is the one that ends up sniping the other tank. They can spawn a bit weird. So, like, this doesn't seem like it would be a range, or a mid one, or a center one, as the soak says. But that's where the center one is, because this one's right close to melee. But sometimes this is the melee one, right? I've seen the melee one spawn here, and you have one in the center and one far. So, like, spawns are slightly variable. So keep that in mind. But yeah, moving forward here. And again, this guy's not even close to the soak, but he's the closest one to it, so he gets it. So you don't need to run all the way back if it's the super far one. So we're moving straight into the intermission right after this. And again, all these intermissions are actually the same as each other pretty much, just in a different part of the room. There we go. We kill the pylon. Everyone has their assigned soaks, and we're going in here. And this is how we do this, basically. So we have, essentially, this is 10 melee. Basically, it's like tanks, melee healer. I think we have the Holy Paladin on this side, all the melee DPS. And this is all the ranged assigned to the left side. So looking at the diagram again, actually it's on this side. Looking at the diagram again. So here is where we preference melee players. Here is ranged players. And that way they kind of know where they're going. Oops, I shouldn't have closed that. So right when you come out, there's going to be cores. Sometimes they're like this. Sometimes they're rotated slightly, where like this leftmost core is right here and the rightmost core is over here. Just again, note, a little bit random. The melee are always going to the rightmost core if you're looking towards the center. The range are always going to just the one closest to them. So the melee are technically the one furthest from the range. The range are the one closest to the range. And we're only talking about the 2 that are close together, because there's a third one up here. So what happens is you run through all these swirlies trigger, just run past them. You can see some people are staying there for uptime, and then they run past afterwards, and you stack directly under your core. You always want to be close to your core when you don't have one of these circle debuffs. You see someone has a circle debuff, they're going to run out with it, and then you immediately want to run back in, because killing these cores is not you DPSing them, it's you being close to them that does damage to them. So the melee are here, focusing on this one. The ranged are here. As soon as this gets low, ranged gate. They're all gating out, gating out. One tank eats this. The other tank is going to eat that one. And then I go to help the range. And you can, as long as you're done this and it detonates, I believe like even like a second after the Shatter Sphere cast, you're good. So you're just focusing on getting this core down, this core down. And again, the later you get in this phase, the sketchier it gets. So, you know, defensiving, especially if you get a late circle debuff, very, very good. Can save your life a lot of the times. And then that's the phase. You know, 3 tank soaks. Ranged are basically covering 2. The melee, theirs takes a little bit longer, because usually there's like 1 or 2 less melee in that group, right? And also there's the swirlies that tend to be prioritized towards the melee side. That's because of this boss positioning, right? The boss position we're using is doing that on purpose, which makes sense because we'd rather delay the people that are only doing one of those cores downstairs, as opposed to the range who are trying to get 2 soaked in time. So that's how we handle that. This is our new positioning between blue and yellow here, just kind of between them. And similarly, the quasars work the exact same, except you're going to have a terrible camera angle here. So the first set, we want to kill these ASAP. We have knocks on these later ones. We also assigned a touch for one of these ones here, just to insta-break one. So we only had to kill 3 of these really and focus on 3, because again, that DPS check is one of the tighter ones where you're trying to kill the quasars in time to get your soaks. There's the melee one, mid one, and the back one's over there. For the cosmic core soaks, this is a melee one here, right? So this is what I'm talking about. It's a little bit further from the boss. The mid one is there. The far one is there. It's a little bit different every single time. And at the same time, we're also managing our damage on this pylon to make sure that only the last group is pushing it below 10% to kill it. And again, all these kind of die here. We got soaks up. And the fight at this point is just rinse and repeat. Now I will show you the final phase because it is a bit tighter. Here, as we're moving. And see, so now you have none of the outer area. You only have the inside area. And let's move until this phase is done. There we go. And so what we do is essentially P1 positioning again. So you just go back to between purple and green. But the big thing here is, of course, people that get the debuff to go downstairs, there's nothing to hit, right? There's no pylon in this phase. But you will still knock people around if you come up in the melee stack. So you need to make sure that you back away. And trust me, the DPS check is not tight on this boss. Just back away, you know, lose a couple seconds of uptime, explode. But see how tight this DPS timer is. Very, very tight to kill these Quasars. And again, that's why our touch is on the second set of Quasars. The first spawn of Quasars in the second phase. Because then it'll be up for this fourth phase. So it will touch that one, so we don't even need to worry about damaging it. Melee are nuking these two, and then they're running over here to try and nuke orange because it's very, very tight. Like I said, so nuking orange, insta-soaking. And these ones are just going to slowly come in and die. And you can see, right, this is the melee soak. Right, the melee soak is out here. Again, kind of showing my point. It's a bit random. It can sometimes be nowhere where you expected it to be. But yeah, you have a much less space here, so use your slows. Things like Piercing Howl from Warriors, very, very good on this fight. You know, Earthbind Tone, like all those any AoE slows, pretty good to make sure these come in late. And you see we have things like Typhoon, things like a Ring of Peace, ready to go if needed to keep them away from the boss. But there we have it. That is Mythic Rygelon. If you enjoyed this video, if you learned something, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like it. I will be putting out a Jailer video that's going to be, you know, delayed until we actually kill Jailer. We're currently at about 50% on the boss, so it'll be a couple more weeks probably before that video comes out, but hopefully it still comes out in time for you guys to make use of it. Otherwise, feel free to leave a comment below if you have any questions at all about this boss, but any other boss, you know, I'll do my best to answer. Also, check me out on Twitch as well. I stream my Jailer prog, I stream high keys, all kinds of stuff like that. So come check me out at Tactics. But that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.